All right. All right. Dallas Mavericks, Minnesota Timberwolves. Game one is in the books. The Mavericks take the first game of the series in Minnesota, 108-105. This is the Clearing the Air After Dark instant reaction. Game one, Minnesota Timberwolves, Dallas Mavericks, Western Conference Finals. I am Kevin Calera, of course, as you know. I don't want this to be nearly as long as that Pacers Celtics one was. It won't be as long for a couple reasons. Reason number one is, I'll be completely honest with you, I kept getting pulled away at moments to where I could not watch. Like I missed a lot of the first half, and I didn't miss it. Like I just kept having to turn and look at something else and come back and turn and look at something else. So like I didn't really get to really hone in and lock into the game until the third quarter. But I from what I was seeing, a lot of Kyrie Irving. I want to say he had 24 in the first half. And that's one of the things, man, with Dallas. Like the two best years Luka's had as far as season success are when he had a guard who is kind of ball dominant. But what ends up happening is when you think two ball dominant players can't play, we don't think together. We don't think of the alternative, which is, okay, they can actually give each other spells and the team doesn't necessarily lose too much. Before, last year, if Luka didn't have the ball in his hand, there was nothing happening for Dallas. That's not the case now. And 2 years ago, that wasn't the case with Jalen Brunson on their conference finals run before losing to Golden State. So they figured out. Luka and Kyrie apparently have a really great relationship. They figured out something. But what I really want to talk about is a few things. One, the Timberwolves. And I want to talk about Anthony Edwards for a little bit, just because I felt like his game tonight was very, how we used to say like LeBron James, game one's always a feel out game, right? Like when you're Minnesota, I mean, I guess Dallas felt this too, but like when you play a team 7 games in a row, including every other night, once you get to a certain point, it becomes like you start to get so used to that team that the second you have to see somebody else and you watch stuff in film, like it's almost like a culture shock in a sense where you're like, oh, shoot, like, okay, these guys are a little bit bigger or stronger or faster or taller or shoot better or whatever it is. Like you got to get out of the mode of all the effort and input that you put into the previous team for 7 straight games and put it into a new team. And it felt like, look, Denver's a good team. Denver has an efficient offense, and I think that their offense drives their defense. Minnesota's the opposite. They're a good team. They're great defense, and their defense drives their offense. I think Dallas is kind of a good combination of the two, right? Like I just mentioned how Luka and Kyrie together, that's a good rhythm. But even beyond that, the Mavericks play defense. Like we're so infatuated because the Timberwolves are the number one defense, but like Dallas plays defense, and they play defense for 2 reasons. Reason number one, they have actual like perimeter defenders, right? You go look up and down that Nuggets roster. I'm not looking at Jamal Murray, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic, and thinking, oh, defensive juggernaut. And the reason is because, who do you really have that's not undersized at their position that can go defend? You got Christian Brown coming off the bench, Reggie Jackson coming off the bench. Like Michael Porter Jr., we know is not a defender. Aaron Gordon is big enough to guard bigs, but he's too slow to guard guards. Like you saw what happened. They had to double team Anthony Edwards for an entire game. And then when you just play good basketball, you make the right reads, you get open shots and open layups all day. They don't have a Derrick Jones Jr. They don't have a PJ Washington who can sit down. These are guys who, PJ Washington specifically, one of those tweeners, so to speak. Basically, PJ Washington for them has been what they signed the dude from Boston. Oh, what's his name? Grant Williams. PJ Washington has been for Dallas what they thought Grant Williams was going to be. Grant Williams is great shoot in the corner, even though he's 6'6", he's super strong, right? When he was in Boston, they thought they were getting that from him, end up trading him before his first year with them is even done. They get PJ Washington, and he ends up doing exactly what they were looking for. So they've got guys who can get on the perimeter, get in that defensive stance and move their feet. Josh Green, Derrick Jones Jr., PJ Washington, Tim Hardaway Jr. I don't really know. I don't think I consider him a defender, but he's there as well. They're a little bit built, and then they have the second biggest thing to a team that plays great defense is rim protection. Derek Lively and Gafford. What's his first name? Daniel? Yeah, Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. That's rim protection. You know what that means? That means that when you drive by your man, if you get by him, it ain't just a layup here or a dunk here. You have to make tough buckets. And when you're super athletic, when you're a Ja Morant, when you're an Anthony Edwards, when you're a Kobe Bryant, like when you're LeBron James, it's easier to do that. When you're Mike Conley, not so much, right? Kyrie Irving is the best finisher we've ever seen. Mike Conley is not. Kyle Anderson is not. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is not. Jaden McDaniels is not. And McDaniels played great tonight, but he hit 6 threes. Right? And so I think this is tying both of these together, Dallas, who was great on the perimeter, Dallas, who has rim protection, even if it's not necessarily neither of them are Tyson Chandler, right, in New York, in his prime, or even in Dallas, but they have rim protection. When you get by your guy, you have to then, you have to make a great move. You have to do something great to even get to this point, to not have to do something else great. And so, like I said, to tie these two together, you go look at the box score and you realize Anthony Edwards took 16 shots and he took 12 threes. I don't like that shot selection from him, right? Steph Curry does that. Klay Thompson does that. That's one thing. And it's not even really about the amount of threes. It's about the percentage of his shots that were threes. 12 out of 16. That's 3 out of 4. 75% of his shots were threes. I don't love that. But when you just played Denver for 7 straight games who had no rim protection, it's an adjustment then coming out here and like, oh, they got a guy who can kind of body up with me, on top of the fact that my matchup is either Luka or Kyrie Irving. No disrespect, Jamal Murray is not Luka Doncic. Not even close. You can't be just because you're longer than him and you're athletic, you just swallow him whole. You can't do that. There was a stretch, and actually, I think it was in the first half, Ant's guarding Luka. Luka gets him off his feet, and one. Yeah, I'm 6'7". I'm big. You're not bigger than me, and I'm a guard. Now guard me. Like, that is the biggest thing about Luka, him being so strong that you can't really speed him up. And you crowding his space doesn't affect him because he's still bigger than the person guarding him 90% of the time. Jamal Murray is 6'4". He's fine. Like, he's a fine sized guard, but he's, you go put Nickeil Alexander-Walker on him, who is 6'5", who probably has a 7-foot wingspan, and you put Anthony Edwards on him, who's 6'4", who probably has a 6'9", 6'10 wingspan. You go put Jaden McDaniels on him, who's 6'9", so his wingspan's in the 7-foot. Yeah, it gets a lot harder for the 6'4", smaller stature guard who's a scoring guard to get his shot off and to get buckets. So that's an adjustment that I feel like Minnesota had to make. And again, Dallas went and played Oklahoma City and had to do the same thing. But Oklahoma City mirrors Minnesota a lot more than Dallas mirrors Denver. So you go play Oklahoma City, okay, where they got Chet, like they've got size and they can score. They're kind of long, as is Minnesota. And with Oklahoma City, you're thinking, okay, but Shai is the guy. We got to stop Shai. But we have the tools to do so. Lou Dort, great defender. So I think that I'm not saying that these teams really are the same team or anything like that. All I'm saying is the comp between Minnesota and Oklahoma City is a lot. There's a lot more similarity there than it is between Dallas and Denver. And literally, if you look at any teams with great defenses, is rim protection and like good, true defenders. Even when Golden State was in their dynastic run, they were playing great defense. You had Iguodala and Klay Thompson, who were your perimeter defenders. You had Draymond Green. They had JaVale McGee one time. They had Andrew Bogut, who wasn't really a like true rim protector, but he's still a big presence in there. Like he wasn't no crazy shot blocker the way like Gobert is, but he was a presence inside. Draymond Green, because he had mastered the art of jumping straight up and down to contest layups and stuff without picking up fouls. That was a big deal. That's rim protection. So if you can't get threes off, and when you get by us, you then can't get, this is what I meant when I talked about that drop coverage, right? Kyrie Irving was eating it up in the first half, and Luka ate it up in the second half because you can't play drop. You have to play drop with Rudy like that, and that just leaves shots. So just a couple big shout outs. I wanna give Karl-Anthony Towns some props. He played big in the fourth. Like Anthony Edwards really, he was struggling. They couldn't buy a shot. Cat, I want to say he went on like a 7-0 run by himself at one point. He only ended up with 16 points and 7 rebounds. He shot 6 for 20, so he didn't shoot well. But his 2 for 9, he made 2 threes. They were big threes, and including the one he made in the fourth that gave him a 1-point lead. Right, it was 99-98 right before Ant hit his last 3, which made it 102-98. Dallas ends up coming right back. This is the biggest shot to me of the entire game. Luka comes down off an offensive rebound or a loose ball, pump fakes the wide open shot, and I love that Stan Van Gundy made this point on the broadcast. He said Luka doesn't like to catch and shoot. He's in much better rhythm when he off the dribble. So even though he was open, he dribbled to get into the step back bag because that's more comfortable for him. Knocked it down. That was huge. Make it 102-101. Then they go play defense, and I remember like seeing Luka guarding somebody. I think it was Conley. Couldn't get by him or something like that. I was like, oh, okay. And then at one point he found himself in the paint. Somebody was driving. He showed. They tried to throw the lob. He came back, knocked it out so Rudy couldn't get the alley-oop. Luka, I mean, we can say what we want about his ability to play defense, but he's definitely not unwilling like he used to be, right? And then, of course, they were down 1. Luka starts to break, gives it to Kyrie, gives it to P.J. Washington in the corner, as I was just talking about, made it 104-102. And the rest was history. So you had 2 great games to start game 1, that Pacers-Boston game and Dallas-Minnesota game. I'm interested to see how game 2 comes out, right? Like, one thing about Dallas that they don't do that you saw Denver do a lot is just start, we're just going to get down 15 points early. And I'm curious, like, I think that, like, if you're Dallas, I think that you can't be content. Okay, we stole one now, right? Like, we can blow. Y'all know how I feel about blowing games, just letting yourself, we're just going to punt this game because whatever. I don't like wasting games in series, so don't come out here and lose by 25 because you stole one and did your job. No, you need to come out here like, we want to win too, because Minnesota in the last round went 3-1 on the road against the champs. Beat them in game 1, beat them in game 2, beat them in game 7. So, they went 3-1 in the playoffs. They went 2-0 obviously because they swept the Suns. So they're 5-1 on the road in these playoffs. Honestly, they kind of lock in a little bit better on the road. So you need to make sure. So you need to be trying to take every game you could. And I mean, Dallas took a couple of games on the road against Oklahoma City. They play well on the road. So yeah, it was a great game. Shout out to Jaden McDaniels, 24 points. Rudy Gobert, 12 and 7. It's not enough. That's not gonna get it done. Ant 19, 11, and 8. Like I said, I didn't mind. Like, I love his ability to put a stamp on the game and make his presence felt, even if he doesn't necessarily score 40. I love that. 19, 11, and 8. That's good stuff. 6 for 16, 5 for 12 from 3. I don't love you being 1 for 4 on shots that aren't threes. I don't love it. But I don't think he's, played bad. Kyrie, great first half. And then shout out to the guys who were kind of the unsung heroes. The rim protection, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford. The perimeter defense, Derek Jones Jr., P.J. Washington, Josh Green. So 1-0 Dallas. 1-0 Dallas. Minnesota's now, okay, we played them. We see kind of some of their strategy here. Let's adjust. Let's see what they do in the second game. If you're Minnesota, obviously you feel, hey, we got to go get this. We got to come out with energy. We got to shoot a little bit better. We got to play a little bit better. And if you're Dallas, all right, well, if we don't win the game, that's fine. But we cannot come out here and punt this game. Game 1, instant reaction. Mavericks, Wolves. See you guys there.